Here's the intro. Hello people watching this video, welcome to this here review show. Today we're here to talk about some third-party multi-platform Wii games. Now, given that I'm the first person ever to talk about something like this will be very extremely unique. For the most part, I'll only be talking about how it feels to play these games with Wii controls, rather than the games themselves, as much. I'll be going in alphabetical order because... do I really need to give a reason? First up, we'll be taking a look at Crash of the Titans, a guilty pleasure of mine and many others. This music screams cheap third-party E10 plus Wii game. Very specific, but still. I mean, I guess we're just retconning how Crash was actually made. But with the new designs, I guess they just didn't give a single fuck. One thing you'll notice right away is how the menu works. You can optionally use the Wii sensor to select options, like a lot of these Wii games. If given the choice though, why would anyone really want to do that?
Episode 1. A New Hop.
A fun little thing they added to this version of the game is the ability to change how your cursor looks during cutscenes. Something that's a little more amusing than the cutscenes themselves.
Is this thing on? Yeah?
The most standout thing about this version is that you can use your cursor while playing the game to pick up little mojo pieces, at least from a certain distance. It is completely optional to do it that way because this game primarily plays the same as it does in other consoles. It's just a little feature to make the game slightly easier. It pretty much works the same way as how you pick up star bits in Super Mario Galaxy. In fact, this game came out on Wii about a month before Mario Galaxy. Nintendo copied Crash of the Titans! I bet that was definitely the case and not just a coincidence. While Mario Galaxy felt a little more required to use the cursor to pick up star bits, Crash of the Titans feels more optional when it comes to picking up mojo. Of course, I guess that does make sense considering this was a multi-platform game. Although you can't pick up everything with the sensor, just the regular mojo. Where the game does require a little more Wii-moting, why did I write that, is with the Titans. If you want to pull off their special moves, you have to move the Wii-Mote and Nun Chuck in certain ways for the moves to be pulled off. Now, I only played the first level for this recording, but for most of the Titans in the game, just wiggle the Wii-Mote around and you'll pull off some special moves most of the time. Some require a little more precision, but for the most part just move the remote around. If you weren't a big fan of this game on other platforms, this version won't exactly change your mind. But if you like, or don't mind using Wii controls for games like this, then you might get some enjoyment out of this version. It does have the upper hand by a little bit over the others, at least when it comes to collecting mojo. The next game we'll be looking at is Lego Batman the video game. Yeah, remember when they added the video game in these titles? It was a different time. Boy, what attractive models these are. Again, a different time. Ooh, what's here in the coming soon option?
My name's Lee Redmond, and I have the longest set of fingernails in the world.
Curiosity did kill some cats. Let's take a look at the game itself. To be honest, there's nothing really special about this version of the game. Like, as much as I played this game, which was very little, the only Wii feeling is when you aim your batarang or other throwing weapons. Other than that, there's not much to say. I did only play the first level, so let me look up and see if there's anything else unique to this version. As far as I can tell, there's nothing really that unique to this version. So, there's not much to say. It's not a bad version by any means, it's just the same game with graphics that are probably slightly better than the PS2 version. One of the benefits to getting this version these days is that it's usually one of the cheapest versions to pay for. Other than that, it doesn't stand out. Not bad, but not unique. The next game on the list is Well, it would be Metal Slug Anthology, but I already made a whole video talking about that collection of games. I did use the GameCube controller for that, but I have used various Wii-Mote options before. Basically, it's fine. I would just recommend a GameCube or Classic controller. Now for the real next game on the list, Mortal Kombat Armageddon. The only M-rated game on the list. Of like 7 games, but still. You know, I did need my heart to start pumping there. And also for my eardrums to be blown out. Now this version of the game actually makes use of the Wii-Mote. Not in the best of ways, but it makes use of it. There's a video here that explains how things work, and of course they make it look like it works 100% of the time. The reality is, though, it works about half the time. Well, maybe more like 60% of the time, but still, that's a lower chance than it should be. They describe it as being easier than ever, when in reality, this is basically a way to play the game if you hate yourself. You can actually play the game with semi-traditional controls on the Wii-Mote and Nun Chuck. It's not the ideal way to play the game, but it does work better than using motion controls. One other thing they added that was unique to this version is another character. The female version of Chameleon, but spelled with a K. I figured why not and just use her for most of my time with this game. I found it to be nothing short of a miracle that I was able to pull off a fatality, even if it was the lowest tier kind. Now the racing minigame actually works a little bit better with the motion controls. A little better. This version was actually criticized at the time for not having online multiplayer, but since the online multiplayer has been shut down for the other ones, at least under normal means, there's not much to hate about this one over the others. Obviously I'm critical of the motion controls in the game, but you can use a GameCube or Classic controller to play it. So I wouldn't recommend this version for the motion controls, but if you want to play the game on the Wii in general, then you can't go wrong with this one. Just stick with more traditional controls. Our next game on the list is Rayman Raving Rabbids. Now, the version I'm playing is part of the Raving Rabbids Party Collection on Wii, which includes Rabbids 2 and TV Party. So technically it's not fully multi-platform, but the game I'm talking about is the same game, and that game is multi-platform, so I'm including it here. Now this game right here was made with the Wii in mind, even more so than the ones we've talked about so far. Now, given that this was a minigame compilation, and that was about 90% of the Wii's exclusive games, Rabbids 1 fit right in on the Wii. Now, you can tell it didn't take full advantage of the Wii's motion controls, considering this is also meant to work on the PS2 and Xbox 360 as well, but it feels best on the Wii, for the most part. I did have some problems when trying to play the rhythm minigame, but I see that as more of a problem with the Wii sensor rather than the game itself. But most of the minigames work well with the Wii controls. Overall, this version isn't amazing, but it is the best way to play the game. It feels like they basically made this game for the Wii, but then ported it to the Xbox 360 and PS2. So yes, I would recommend this version over the others. The next game on the list is probably the most preferred version of the game by most fans, Sonic Unleashed on Wii. Well, it's the most preferred version of the SD version of the game. Since this game has been talked about to death, both positively and negatively, I'll try to be a little brief. I am just talking about how it feels to play this on Wii, of course. Anyway, this game is fine with the motion controls. For the most part, you use the buttons, but you do also get use out of the motion controls as well. For the daytime stages, you mostly just use the motion controls for homing attacks and boosting. So the daytime stages go very light, no pun intended, overall with the motion controls. The nighttime stages, on the other hand, use the motion controls a little more, and they're not the best. For some things they function, but when it comes to combat, they're meh. Again, you use the buttons for some things, but for other things such as like special moves and combos and all that stuff, you have to use the motion controls, and of course they work about half the time. At least when it comes to pulling off specific moves you want to do. The controls aren't the worst I've played on Wii by a long shot, but they're not as good as they should be. So for the Wii-Mote and Nun Chuck controls, I wouldn't recommend this version. But since you can use GameCube and Classic controllers to play the game, I can see why this is the most preferred version of the SD version of the game. Visually, it is better than the PS2 version. If you want a more straightforward version of the game, this is the best one to play. Have I said version yet in this video? The next game on the list is Star Wars The Force Unleashed. Expected, but still cool. Well, we get this lightsaber to select stuff for the game. That's neat. For those of you who are wondering, this version is different from the PS3 and 360 versions of the game. Basically, all the non-PS3, 360, and PC versions of the game are different from those versions. It generally follows the same story, but locations and level designs look different. So if you've played the PS2 version or the PSP version of the game, then you know what to expect here. The DS version is kind of its own thing. Anyway, the Wii version does have motion controls, of course. They're very meh. Like a lot of these Wii games, evidently the motion controls work about half the time. It can be cool to use the Force and other things with the Wii-Mote, but after a little bit, it just doesn't feel good. It'd be one thing if these levels didn't last as long, but they last a lot longer than they should. It's alright with something like a PS2 controller, but with the motion controls, it gets tiring real quickly. Also, motion controls for QuickTime events, not their best idea. I mean, it works, but, you know. So yeah, I can't say I would recommend this version of the game, unless all you have to play it on is the Wii. But otherwise, stick with the other versions. Now, I haven't played it before, but I have heard that the Wii version of the sequel is a lot better. Again, I can't really say for sure because I haven't actually played that version, but it might be worth checking out sometime. Well, we've made it to the final game of the video. A bit of a short list, I know. But if I were to talk about even half the multi-platform games on Wii, we'd be here all day. Anyway, the last game on this video's list is Toy Story 3 the video game. Ah shoot, copyright stuff, I guess. Interesting fact about this version. Well, interesting to me anyway. Despite the Wii being just a tad bit more powerful than the PS2, this version of the game actually matches the PS3 and 360 versions. Like, given the way that most of these multi-platform games have been so far on the Wii, you'd expect this version to be more like the PS2/PSP/DS version of the game. But instead, it plays like the versions on the stronger hardware. I don't know if that means that the Wii's hardware is more impressive than I thought, or if the PS2 version could have been more like the other console versions, but they were too lazy to get it working, or they didn't have enough time, I don't know. Anyway, how is this game when it comes to motion controls? Well, it's another one of those that hardly uses them, which is better in my opinion. There are motion controls in the game when it comes to like aiming and stuff, but that's about it. This game is already great, and I feel like they would have brought it down a lot had they forced in a lot of motion controls. Luckily though, that's not the case with this version. I know I sounded more negative whenever I was talking about this same subject but with a Wii version of Lego Batman, but that might be because I really like this game. But yeah, this is a fine version of the game, even if the motion controls are hardly used, and the graphics look only slightly better than if this version were on PS2. Now, it is possible that there are a lot more motion controls throughout the game that I didn't know about since I only played a little bit of this version. But from what I played, this is a fine port. This isn't the best version of the game. I would still recommend the PS3 or 360 versions over this one out of the, let's just say, E10 Plus rated versions of the game. I'm only saying that because the other versions, PS2, PSP, and DS, are rated E. But if all you have that this game is on is the Wii, or all you can afford at the time is the Wii version, you can't go wrong with this one. Well, that wraps things up for today. Sure, there's many other games I could have talked about when giving examples, but I would have been here for a while if I did, and I didn't want to spend that much money even if they are usually cheaper. Most of these multi-platform Wii games either hardly use the motion controls at all, or they use them in very unnecessary ways. But then you have some that put good use to them controls. If I'm honest though, for the most part these days, I'd only buy multi-platform games on Wii that have GameCube and/or classic controller capabilities. The motion controls didn't exactly age as well on Wii. Not for all games, but for most. I hope you enjoyed this video, ladies and gentlemen. Don't forget to like this video if you like it, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this or any other types that I make, and thanks for watching.